Is technology changing the way we communicate? Introduction. In this and the next module, I will discuss to what extent technology is changing the way we speak, read, and write. The present module takes the form of debate or discussion where we look at different positions on the issue. This issue taken up early on in the book because its consequences come up again and again throughout the book, as it is one of the main themes of the book. In Module 3, I do a particular study of reader preferences vis-a-vis electronic and ebooks and their traditional hard copy counterparts. The module is structured as follows. In the first part, I outlined and defined more clearly and the aims, objectives, and theoretical positions that constitute the discussion in the module. Following this, I then take up the question whether there is a causal relation between new forms and language and new technologies and discusses whether the Internet in particular and other ICT tools are changing forms and uses of language. After that, I then provide a list of the most frequent shortenings as an example of the new forms of linguistic expressions that emerge through use of the Internet, championed mostly by young people. The module concludes with a summary of the issues discussed in it. ICT features and tools. We have already defined and discussed ICT in Module 1. I will now outline the main features and tools of ICTs that will enable us better understand the role they play in bringing about linguistic and communicative innovations. Main features of Information Communication Technologies ICT. In this section of the Module 1 outline the main features of ICT based on which I show later on that these features distinguish ICTs from previous communications technologies, which is the basis for the new forms and new uses of language that we observe in text-based CMC. These are multimedia integration, flexibility of use, connectivity, and interactivity. Blurton 1999, Bodomo 2000, Shorties 2001. Multimedia integration underscores the fact that ICTs enable us to combine various types of media for the purpose of communication. It is possible, for instance, to seamlessly integrate text and image, drawings, and even voice features into a piece of writing or lecture presentation far more than would have been the case without computers and allied technologies. Flexibility of use underlies not only the fact that it is easy to do this integration, but that one can have many options in communication or information exchange situation. For instance, one can choose to do real-time communication or delayed communication using the same ICT tools such as email. Connectivity deals with the ability of ICTs to bring together people who may be living oceans apart. For instance, it is now possible for academics in Asia and North America to collaborate reasonably easily on writing an article for publication. This involves a lot of communication which would have been virtually impossible or too slow prior to the advent of ICTs. Interactivity in the ultimate features of ICTs because of all the above features participants in communicative situation using ICTs are more interactive. That is, they can control the communication situation in terms of back and forth exchange of information and in terms of how they control the content of the information. In a learning situation, for instance, we may distinguish between learner-teacher interaction, learner-learner interaction, and learner-resource interaction, as all of which would have been more enhanced with the use of ICTs that would otherwise be the case. Even the point of making learning from a distance look like a physical and campus classroom learning, interactive, and its role in creating learning environments will be discussed in depth in Module 10 and 11. All these four features lead to an incredible generous choices of modes and communication that are the disposal of ICT's users. These modes of communication include one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many communication scenarios. One-to-one communication may involve a simple mobile phone or MSN chatting between two people, one on each side. One-to-many communication may involve a blogger, a kind of online diary sharing his or her life experience with his or her readers. Many-to-one communication has involved in interview situation where a candidate is linked to a group of interviewers, and many-to-many communication could, for instance, involve an online chat situation or situation where two classrooms are interacting across vast oceans. ICT tools. ICT tools may be divided into two broad types. This includes internet technologies and digital ICT tools, though it must be quickly stated that this broad division is getting very blurred with improvements in technology whereby integrated technologies are the order of the day. Internet technologies include internet media such as email, instant messaging like MSN, YouTube, internet video gaming, web blog or blogs, learning systems such as WebCity, and all other kinds of chatting systems. Digital ICT tools include hardware such as computer of all types, software connected to computers, writing tools, PDAs, mobile phone, BlackBerry, and other tools yet to be invented. As mentioned above, there is a tendency to blur this division with the building of digital ICT tools integrated with internet technologies. For instance, BlackBerry and iPhones are both digital ICTs with integrated internet technologies, making very easy to access the internet on the go as easily as a desktop computer. Can new technologies change our language? The main aim of the module is to explore primary issues concerning the possible causal relationship between language and technologies. Two relevant questions in this regard are: is there a causal relationship between new forms of language and new technologies? And are the internet and other ICT tools changing forms of uses of language? I focus on the first question here, beginning with the idea of change. The idea of change as used involves both changes in linguistic forms and change in use of language. Another aspect is to look at change as modification in existing forms and uses, and change as emergence of novel, original creation of language. To give two examples, change modification involves abbreviations and writing the second person singular pronoun in English, you as you. Change as novel creation involve the creation of novel forms or entirely new words that are directly linked with the information revolution, such as YouTube noun, to YouTube verb, and YouTuber noun. Change in the way in which we use language may involve the pervasive use of emotions to express our feelings when we write. Emotions are resilience feature of what has often been described in the literature as visual language, Horn 1999. An emerged international language that blends words and images include the emotions that I have focused on her to convey complex ideas in communication situation. With the idea of change now clarified, let us discuss the various positions taken by various writers on the causal relationship between language and new technologies in answer the question whether technology influences change in language or otherwise. While not directly arguing against the ideas that there is no causal relationship between the emergence of new technology in general as the new ways in with which language is used across 1998 53. For instance, observes that when we look at the far-reaching and deep changes in forms of communication which characterize the present email and its changing forms language. For instance, it is attempting to attribute these changes to some technology innovations but erroneous to do so. Look see 2083 also takes a similar position, believing that new forms of literacy practices do not simply emerge with technological change. Rather, technologies always emerge as product of a specific culture, practices, literature, traditions, and the interests and desires of those groups who design and name them. Yet, there are other writers in the field who argue that there is indeed of significant causal relationship between communication technology and new language and literacy practices, or more specifically the evolution of new ways of using language. As Adams 1996 puts it, the new technologies are themselves dramatically changing the nature of the language we use. Such an approach is also supported by Baron 1984-139, which concludes that no one in the computer industry has any hidden agenda for using hardware or software development to alter human language, yet technology can embed language, linguistic, and social change. Indeed, new practices of language and literacy may be attributed to a set of unique properties in new communication technologies. This is quite an important debate in the field CMC and constitutes a major theme in this book, whether or not the internet and other CMC tools have causal effects on language and literacy in terms of changing their forms, uses, and the consequences of this for linguistic analysis and for general and language education. In modules 4, these views will once again be highlighted and then used to develop a specific model of technology conditioned language change process. Readers may indeed be more specific and just concentrate on debating the following topic. Do you think that the internet is changing the way we use our language? If so, give evidence of some new forms and uses of language. If not, explain why not. Indeed, this and related issues were the topic of a radio discussion by David Crystal, writer of the book Language and the Internet, Crystal 2006. Crystal describes these language changes both in form and use as leading to a new forms of language which he refers to as net speak language and the Internet, the connection, Boston University, and Burr. 4th January 2002, HTTP archives the connection.org slash archive slash 2000 slash 01 slash 0104b dot shtml retrieved November 2008 website not accessible on March 7, 2009. A further allied discussion to the above debate topics in whether the use of internet has consequences for our choice of language. In other words, are we obliged to use one particular language more on the internet? This was indeed an issue in the early years of the internet when English was the only language used since the internet began in the US, an English-speaking country. Some demographic data would tend to support the view source global internet statistic by language. The internet population as of September 2003 comprised 35.6% native English speakers. However, the percentage is steadily dropping 55% in 1998, 36.5% in 2002, as a result of the internet becoming more and more multilingual and thus compatible with many languages. Chinese is second place after English, followed by Japanese, Spanish, German, and Korean. Second, Chinese, 12.2%, third Japanese 9.5%, fourth Spanish 8%, fifth Germany 7%, sixth Korea 4%. In terms of statistic about language on screen as of June 2000, over 60% over 2 billion of web pages were published in English with other language in the following order. Second Japanese 5.85%, third Germany 5.75%, fourth Chinese 3.87%, fifth French 3%. Why English dominates the situation? A further discussion point would be why English in particular dominates the CMC situation. First, as mentioned above, the internet began in the US. Second, English is still regarded as an international language for global information exchange. Third, it has a fair amount of native speakers and many second language speakers worldwide, such that even native speakers of other languages still have the option to use English as well as their language on the internet. Fourth, reason of dominance of English on the internet is that there are quite substantial character inputting and encoding problems, which leads to difficulties in using other languages, especially those that do not have an alphabetical writing system. Some solutions. There have been several attempts to find a solution to this problem and thus make the internet more multilingual. To solve character inputting and decoding problems, attempts have been made to develop codes compatible for most languages, known as the Unicode system. Second, there are also some inputting system in place for converting alphabetical writing into other orthographical systems such as Chinese and Japanese characters. And third is to develop multilingual websites situational in which the same information is written in several languages on the same website. A fourth way is to develop what is known as real-time multilingual translators for on-the-spot translation of website. This has not been successful, but of the most efficient ones are Systrand, www.systrandsoft.com/papers/ppr alta.htm, and AlvaVista Babel Fish. World.altavista.com, retrieved March 7, 2009. Acronym shortening as an example of new linguistic forms. Besides older ways of forming acronyms such as ASAP, as soon as possible, BTW, by the way, acronym. The process of creating acronym on the internet comprises many new methods, some of which include the following. Acronym of sentences. GTG, got to go. BRB, be right back. LUL, laugh and loud. Letter homophones. U, as in you, R. Number homophones. Near homophones. 88, bye. 99, night. Combination of letter and number homophones. B and 4, before. Reduction of individual words. TML, tomorrow, cause, because. GT night, good night. Combination of letter initial and letter homophones. TTUL, talk to you later. IC, I see. In preparation of deciphering acronyms in letter module, readers may try to identify the following short forms that have appeared in some of the CMC texts that I will be discussing. Hand, CUL 8R, IMHO, are you okay? Grade, TTYL. Conclusion. In this module, have I presented the basic features and tools of CMC and then used that as the basis to discussion the possible causal relationship between ICTs and language change. I have in so doing examined different views on the visual relationship between language and new technologies, along with allied issues such as why English has been a dominant language on the internet and what is being done to make the internet more multilingual or user friendly for other language. I conclude by suggesting and discussing shortening as one of the piece of evidence of new forms of language and literacy as a result of the use of ICTs. In the next module, I discuss some quite profound changes in the way we read and as a result of our interaction with CMC tools and the production of electronic materials such as e-book and e-journal. Here are the preferences.